Hello, hello. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about Datacrons. Specifically, I want to talk about Datacrons as it comes to farming as a free-to-play or just light spender in general. So you'll see I don't have a ton of Datacrons right now. This last set, I was kind of just taking a break from the game for a little bit, so I didn't really have a chance to farm very many Datacrons. But this set, I am trying to get a couple of level 9s up and running during this conquest cycle, and you can see I've already got two of the nice ones from this set, but I just kind of want to talk about my approach to farming Datacrons as a free-to-play or even just like a light spender kind of mentality. For me, I haven't been spending on the game at all recently, and I've been doing just this off of my regular crystal income in the game. So I think this is really manageable the way I'm going to talk about it. And I think that I'm going to give you some options of if you want to go a little bit further, kind of where you can go with that. I'm going to say in advance, this is not for people that are in that Kyber 1 top of the meta game where you are trying to spend constantly and trying to stay on top of the meta constantly. This is going to be more of the, hey, how can we use Datacrons to our advantage without throwing everything at it and over investing in it? How can we kind of incorporate this into our normal farms that it's manageable, but also gives us that edge in GAC and territory wars? As well as how can it increase our rewards in those game modes. So first I want to talk about what Datacrons are for those that don't know what they are. You'll see that each one of these has an active until date. Basically, it's just seasonal power-ups that rotate between the factions, characters, and stats that it's going to give every few months. That's kind of the elevator pitch, what we're talking about. If you're clicking on this video, I'm going to assume you know kind of what we're talking about. But that's the elevator pitch for those that are just kind of getting acquainted to Datacrons. Let's talk about why I use Datacrons. And for that, I want to talk about the stats. So I'm going to pull up some stats here from swiggo.gg, and we're going to look at first what the hold rates look like for teams, both with and without Datacrons active. And then we're going to look at, oh, and I put that over my face. Whoops. Professional, and I'm not going to cut this out because I don't feel like it. What hold rates look like without and with Datacrons. So without Datacrons equipped, this is Kyber only. You can see that here. We filtered to has a defending Datacron? No. And just for this season, you can see that the hold rate, average hold rate is 16%, 16.4%. All right. When we look at it with a Datacron, so Kyber again, with Datacrons equipped, your hold rate goes up to 23%, almost 24%. So almost an 8% jump in your hold rates just by putting any Datacron, that could be any Datacron at all, onto your teams. If we look at win rates on offense, without a Datacron, average win rate for people is 67.1%. Oh, actually, let's switch this to has defending Datacron any. Whoops. Okay, average win rate with a Datacron, or without a Datacron, sorry, attacking with any defending Datacron in Kyber specifically is 72.7%. And then if we look at has an attacking Datacron, yes, this goes up to 79%. So it makes your offense about 7% more likely to win. So your hold rate's about 8% more likely to hold, your offense about 7% more likely to win. That's good data in my opinion. And that's any Datacron. That's not even getting level 9s. We're just talking any Datacron at all. So let's talk about what Datacrons do as far as an effective use of them in the meta. So I kind of broke up Datacrons into 4 sections, I would say. You have what I would call meta-defining Datacrons. So these are Datacrons, and I would use this Sonostaros one as a meta-defining Datacron. These are Datacrons that completely change teams, make teams unbeatable sometimes. Some of the examples I put down for this are like the Great Mothers bespoke Datacron that we got. This Sonostaros one is a really good one that I think is a great example of this, where it's taking a team that should normally be in one tier, whether that's A tier, B tier, and it's completely shifting them, usually all the way up into S tier. So Sonostaros, a pretty trash team that you don't usually use, now is countering GLs with this Datacron. The Great Mothers Datacron, another great example. A team that should be somewhat manageable to deal with was literally almost unbeatable. I think that those kind of Datacrons are the ones that when you have those characters on your roster, you have to go seek them out. Now, obviously, the Great Mothers one was a bespoke Datacron, so you couldn't really get it if you wanted to, but that's kind of the idea we're talking about. Think about the Gungan Datacrons that came out when they first were in the game, the Boss Nass Datacron. Like, if you remember some of these, the ones that are truly transforming the team. Then I would look at the ones that make bad teams better. So I think of like some of the Rebel Datacrons we had in the last set, where it takes CLS, who's kind of falling out of the meta a little bit, and gave him some additional viability. Things like this Poggle Datacron, where they're taking Geos who are normally pretty easily countered. They're going to make them a little scary with this Datacron, especially in Territory Wars. Those are the kind of things that I'm looking for when I'm looking at the Datacrons that are taking teams I wouldn't normally be able to use, and then moving them to where I actually can use them. So my Geos normally sit on my roster and don't do anything in territory or in GAC right now. Now I actually have a chance where I might use them because of this Poggle Datacron. Speaking of the transformative Datacron, Sidious, also a transformative Datacron that just absolutely shifts Sidious into a absolute crazy monster. Think about Sidious. I don't use him on my roster normally. If anything, I might throw him with Bane or something as an additional Sith for him to kill off, but outside of that, I'm not using Sidious. So this Sidious Datacron is going to make it so I can solo Malgus, solo Starkiller, all that for one character. Very, very worth it. And so the third category I kind of talked about that I wanted to talk about are Crons that just make teams more annoying. They don't necessarily make them transformative. They don't necessarily completely change it, but maybe they shut down a couple counters, or make a counters just a few less banners, things like that. Just make teams just a little bit more annoying. Things like the Koth Datacron we had. Obviously, you can maybe argue that one's a little higher in Territory Wars with coloring back Territory War Omicron and Mace Windu Omicron. But anyways, just the idea that it's shutting down some key counters. Enfys Nest is a good one from the last set. Putting that with Rey, just making that team a little bit more annoying, maybe making a couple of counters fall short. Those are the kind of things. I think that the Dooku one out of this set with Trench is a good example of that, where I think it'll just make the counters to Trench just a little bit more annoying to deal with. And those are the kind of third tier Datacrons. And then finally we have, I'm going to call my fourth tier Datacrons of just counters that, or Datacrons that just add stats or just add some annoying modifiers to a team that maybe they don't have a faction tied to them, but they just make them a little bit more annoying. So for this, I think of bulk Crons, light side level 3 bulk Crons. I'm throwing one of these on every light side team I'm throwing on defense. And so with those kind of 4 sections of Datacrons laid out, let's talk more about the how to get the Datacrons and how do you know how many of the each Datacron you want to get. Should I take this to level 9? Should I take this to level 6? What should I do? So let's go through that. So when we're talking about those 4 different tiers of Datacrons, if you have any that are coming out as transformative to the team, you really should be targeting those ones first. Sidious is a great one from this set. If you have a Relic 5 or higher Sidious, you should be getting the Sidious Datacron. There's no reason not to. It is absolutely a monster on offense. It's going to transform that team. Sana Staros. If you had a Sana Staros on the last set, I would highly have encouraged you to go and get a Sana Staros Datacron. Those are the first ones I would target that just absolutely transform the team. Change somebody who you couldn't use into somebody that is a nightmare to deal with, or in Sana's case, makes a team that is normally trash into something that's actually a GL killer. I would also throw into this category those ones that make your teams impossible to deal with. I think of the Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano Cron from last set, or the one that just expired. That Datacron was a pain to deal with. So really, you have to know the metas a little bit. You have to pay attention to that. And my recommendation for that is pay attention. I mean, there's not really a lot you can do other than that. Watch videos, read Reddit, read Discords. You can join my Discord. I like to talk about Datacrons. If you want to ask me, I'll be in my Discord and talking about Datacrons. But also, there's a lot of great YouTubers out there. I'm going to link 4 of them below that I always watch for Datacron information. Tasnex, Zareth, Vexatron, and Sanjita always make a guide about the Datacron set when it comes out, speculating what's going to be good. And then even some of them will follow up later on showing exactly what they're beating and things like that. While we're talking about this, also shameless plug, I'm trying to do a little bit of a video on the Sidious Datacron as far as which teams it can and cannot beat. So if you have footage of that, I have my Discord link in the description. Should be like the top link there. If you want to go and join the Discord, I have a channel in there called Footage Bounties, where I'm looking for people to submit footage of right now the Sidious Datacron, but obviously that will change over time of what we're looking for. So these kind of transformative Datacrons are the ones you need to look for first. Then you're going to want to look for any of the other level 9s that are good, that are for characters that you have. I would say it's almost never worth farming a character up just because they have a Datacron. By the time you get the gear applied to them and the relic mats applied to them that are necessary, the Datacrons can be halfway expired, and it's just not worth it if you're a free-to-play player or a light spender. I don't think. If you want to do that because you really like a character and they get a good Datacron, by all means, you can do it. I'll be honest, I did it for the Sidious Datacron the last time it was around. So do as I say, not as I do. Then you want to look for those Datacrons for those teams that just buff your team minimally, or even just kind of give that little stat boost to those teams. I would think of all of your teams that you put on defense. So by this point, you've managed to farm big level 9s for the set. You got 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever of that set for the characters that you're looking for. Now you want to, start to get the level 5s, the level 6s, the Datacrons that are just going to make your defenses a little more solid. And again, we're talking about this from a limited resource point of view, because obviously in an ideal world, you get level 9 Datacrons on all your teams, but that's not realistic for every player, especially free-to-play or light spenders. So what I would recommend doing instead is looking at your defensive teams, anybody that you're setting on defense, and make sure that they have a good Datacron. So let's walk through an example for me. So for me, some of the key defensive teams I use are these 2 right here. I use Ray on defense almost every GAC, not almost, and I use Jabba on defense every GAC. So these 2 teams, I always want a Datacron for. So right now, I already managed to farm a Datacron that I'll be using at least temporarily. Obviously, I'll probably upgrade this more later on, but right now, I can't remember which one of these it is. It's the other one. I have this Datacron that gives me the light side bulk, gives me some additional armor pen, and a little bit of crit damage and tenacity for my Ray team. This is all I'm going to do for now. It's a annoying cron, going to add a little bit of extra health, a little bit of extra protection, and a little bit of armor pen and crit damage. Now, this goes into what I was saying of you have to be informed and know what's available in the set. You have to know that there's a light side bulk cron available, and you have to go and farm it. You have to know that armor pen is a good stat for Ray, and that offense is a good stat for Ray, and that health is a good stat for Ray. Like, you have to know those things. You have to know how those kits work. Otherwise, you're going to be a little lost, because even from a YouTuber's point of view, I can try to give you the best advice I can, but it's going to be really hard for you to apply that to your roster if you don't know the teams that you're using or how they function. So you have to do a little bit of reading on your kits and understand the characters that you're using and why certain crons would be really good for them. Another thing to keep in mind with Datacron farming is that it builds over time. So when you use your Datacrons, you get anywhere, I think it's like 50 to 75%. I think it's like 66%, I think technically actually of what you get back for the Datacrons at the end of the set. But you'll get back some of the materials. And over time, you will get more and more Datacron materials so you can build your roster a little bit more. So even though I took almost a complete break and barely had any resources last set, I still was able to build some level 9s pretty quickly on my account. And I haven't been doing many refreshes on Conquest. I've been pretty busy, so I haven't really done that many refreshes. But I've still managed to build a few level 9s. So with all that said, now we kind of talked about the hierarchy of what kind of Datacrons you're going to farm. Let's talk about actually farming the Datacrons. So obviously, you farm Datacrons in Conquest. For farming Datacrons, what I normally try to do is I try to farm Datacrons up until the GAC lock-in of the Conquest that's going on, because usually what happens is the first week of Conquest has no GAC, and then GAC lock-in happens. And so I'm going to farm Datacrons usually up until that GAC lock-in happens, and then once that does happen, I'll shift to really focusing on my feats. I'm going to put a disclaimer here right now. I do not think it's worth giving up a crate in Conquest in order to farm Datacrons. If you can get red crate, you should be getting red crate and then farming your Datacrons. If you're worried about getting red crate or farming Datacrons, I would say farm your red crate first and then start farming Datacrons. It's okay to miss the first GAC lock-in. It's unfortunate. It's probably ideal to try to do your Datacron farming before then. But if you're really worried about getting red crate, focus on your feats first. Once you've got your red crate, then you can focus Datacron farming. But for me, as like kind of a resource management thing, I like to, I mean, obviously I'm going to try to do whatever feats I can. So right now I need to do like my Night Sisters and my Lights and Mandalorians, my Imperial Remnants right now. So I'm doing those on the Datacron nodes wherever possible. So if you can overlap, obviously great. But right now, my main focus is Datacron farming. So when you're farming Datacrons, obviously Sector 1 is where you actually farm the Datacrons themselves, which, quick thing, I feel like they dropped the drop rate on these. I've been getting so unlucky with getting these when I was having a farm here. So it took me a lot of attempts to get these, get a bunch or get a few. But that's neither here nor there. If you're struggling for the Mark 1, what you're going to need, the Mark 1 Acumen, wherever it is, this stuff, this is not the place to farm it. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to farm in either Sector 2, here where there is credits and the Mark 1, or what do they call these, data caches? I call them Datacron credits, but a lot of new players will have a bottleneck of these Datacron credits, these data caches. I promise that does go away with time. If you need to spend some shard shop currency on some at the start, I think that's okay, but in general, I don't like to spend shard shop currency on Datacron mats unless I have an excess of shard shop currency, because the shard shop currency is just so much better spent on gear, whether that's to actually apply and get people to gear 13 or to just salvage that gear and make more Zimbadals or Lectriums or whatever. So I would hesitate of spending too much on too much shard shop currency on Acumen or the data caches. I would really focus on just using those for gear whenever possible. But if you're like right before GAC lock-in and you need to pick up a couple more extra credits to get that last level 9, you can totally do that. I don't think that's a terrible spend. I don't think you're like doing things terribly. But anyways, we're talking about the Mark 1 Acumen. Here is a good spot to get it. Or if you don't actually need the credits, if you've been farming for a little while, you can get them here as well, and you'll get some Mark 2s along with them. If you need Mark 2s, if you're struggling for Mark 2s, you can farm them here with the Mark 1s, or you can farm them here, I believe, with the Mark 3s, or sorry, in Sector 4 with the Mark 3s. And this is my recommendation because you get, your potential is 5 less technically, but you need so many of these Mark 3s to get those level 9s that I would recommend farming them here in general. So the keynotes in my mind are Sector 4, end of Sector 4, beginning of Sector 1, or the first node in Sector 1. And then this one in Sector 2 was nice for when I was short on credits and needed some additional Mark 1 acumen. But outside of those, I would stick to that Sector 4 one for the most part. Let's talk about crystal refreshes. My recommendation for you is if you are in hard conquest and getting red crate, you should be doing 50 crystal refreshes daily during conquest. I know that's not what you want to hear because it's not particularly fun to spend extra energy in conquest, but I think those 50 crystal refreshes are enough to usually get you at least 3 level 9s per conquest. So by the end of the set, you should have 9 level 9s. Or if you don't actually need 9 level 9s, if you only need a few level 9s, a bunch of level 8s or 6s instead, or sorry, 8s or 5s. And I'll show you why I say 8s or 5s in a second. Actually, we'll do that right now. So when you're actually upgrading the Datacrons right now, I recommend taking them to level 5, level 8, or level 9. Why do I say that? Take them to level 5 so you can get a good level 3 and you get 2 extra stats. You don't need to take it to level 6 if the faction that you're putting it on does not have a good level 6. Obviously you can to get to level 8 stats, but if you're going to farm it all the, if you're going to get level 6, you might as well take it all the way to level 8. So farm it to level 8 if there's not a character you need, but there's a good faction, or if you just want those extra stats for one of your core defensive teams. Or farm it to level 9 where you actually have a character that needs to benefit from that, or you want to reroll some of the stats. Talking about rerolls, real materials are hard to come by. And if you get unlucky, it can be really hard to get some of those level 9s and the right level 6s to pair with them for the characters that you're looking for. So I would use your reroll mats very sparingly. I try to get it to when I do get the level 9s I want, I try to use my rerolls on these level 9s. I don't usually try to reroll my level 5s and my level 8s, mainly because you can't reroll the stats unless you do it while you're upgrading it, and I haven't seen if the other stats turn out good. And so my usual approach is I usually only reroll my level 9s for the teams that I really are transformative for that set. Otherwise, I'll just farm another Datacron. Because if I get, let's look at this cron that I'm planning on using for Ray, right? Armor pen, and then crit damage tenacity. Not the best stats overall that I think my Ray team could use, right? Like ideally, I think I'd want health and armor pen pretty much exclusively. And also these armor pen stats are really low in the range. I'm not gonna upgrade this level 9 and start rerolling those stats, honestly. Instead, I'll probably leave this cron here, try to farm a new one for Ray over time, and eventually when I do get one that's better, I'll throw this on another team that can use some armor pen and some extra health and max protection. So I'm trying to save my resources as much as possible, especially those reroll mats. Those reroll mats are hard to come by. I usually try to save them because I get unlucky and can't get the characters I want usually. Although this set, I've been actually doing really good so far. So hopefully that helps with all that information for Datacrons. I know this was a lot, and I want to touch on one more thing really quickly, so bear with me. Let's talk about focused Datacrons. If you saw, I didn't have any focused Datacrons on my account currently. I could change my opinion on this later, but I do not think focused Datacrons are worth it. At least not during the first cycle of a Datacron set. The reason I say that is because the cost to upgrade a focused Datacron is 4 times that of a normal Datacron set. 4 times. So my question to you, if you're thinking about going for a focused Datacron, is 1 level 15 Datacron worth more than 4 level 9 Datacrons? In my mind, that's a full zone of Datacrons versus 1 team for a Datacron. I just don't see it being worth it right now, and I honestly really think CG is going to adjust the cost of focused Datacrons because I don't think it's worth it the way it's set up right now, unless, again, you're a whale and you're doing all of that. So, final thoughts. Datacrons are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. Let's try to use them to our advantage, even if we are free to play or light spending. Be smart with your investing. Get the focus on the ones that are going to be most transformative first, and then farm ones for your teams that you need. Farm ones for the teams that you know you're going to be putting on defense, and try to get more holds with those teams. Defense is where your GACs are won. You guys know this. Even if you're free to play, you can be competitive with Datacrons. You just have to be very intentional and very smart with the resources that you have. Anyways, if you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you would like to help me with getting more footage for Datacrons, join the Discord linked below. Other than that, I love you all. Take care and peace.